Kia ora and welcome back to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and I am here to talk about Necromunda with you, the Necromunda wide community out there, which seems to be growing. I'm really chuffed with well, the rate of the content that I'm getting out there, and you seem to be too, and everyone seems to be enjoying it, and it's all just a great time right now. Anyway, so in this video I'm going to do something slightly different. I've actually planned out quite a few videos here. The main thing that I'm getting through at the moment is my gang guides, which I'm kind of over halfway through now. Of course, we've got a new book and we've got a load of new releases coming very soon, so I'm going to you know, do some content on those pretty soon. But the sort of departure here is going to be looking at some aesthetics of some of the actual models and sculpts in the current Necromunda range, and just having a talk about you know, how I find them to paint, to look at aesthetically. Again, these are just my own views and opinions, so you might disagree with me on these, and that's fine. That's what art is all about. It's all subjective at the end of the day, but I think many of you will agree with me on my choices here. But this video here is going to be a top 10 of the Forgeworld miniatures for Necromunda, solely for Necromunda here, of course, because this is a Necromunda channel. So I'm going to go through and give you the 10th place up to first place in terms of the Forgeworld miniatures, and just give them a rating basically. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by a few of them. I'm also going to give you a little mention of the 5 worst for Forgeworld miniatures for the Necromunda range currently as well. I'm aiming to do this with the actual the plastics as well through Games Workshop, but I thought I'd start with Forgeworld. Now, Forgeworld, of course, if you're new to the world of Necromunda miniatures, Forgeworld are resin. They're much higher detail generally than the Games Workshop plastics, but they're usually harder to work with as well, so that comes with a price too. They are obviously a lot more expensive, particularly here in New Zealand, where you're paying an absolute arm and a leg for these guys. However, because I'm so into Necromunda in general, I have actually got, I think, every single one of the miniatures that I'm going to be mentioning, apart from the 5 worst, which I'm going to go through as well, which will be quite funny too. So anyway, getting straight into it, of course, I'm going to be sort of rating these on not just aesthetics, but I'm going to be rating these on, you know, what the actual models are like in person, how they are to work with, how they are to paint, the level of detail, etc. And taking into account some of those things as well. So you might be surprised by some of the things I say, but some of this will hopefully make you pick up these models and actually buy them from Forgeworld. Some of this will put you off them, no doubt. But this is just my 2 cents on everything, really. So getting into it straight away. So for the Necromunda Forgeworld top 10 models up to date now, taking into account everything that's been released up until today, which is the, what are we looking at, the 21st. We're right in the middle of the year here. So starting at number 10, I'm going to say that number 10 is Lady Credo. Now, Lady Credo is a dramatis personae who came with the Book of the Outcast. She's actually on the front cover of the Book of the Outcast, and she's really lovely looking model here, as we can see. Flowing robes, we've got lots of nice purity seals on here, and sort of awesome looking massive mane of hair there as well, updo. And the thing I like most about this model is the abundance of grimdark sort of servo skulls there as well. The las pistol detailing is lovely. We've got a bionic arm. We've got a lot of stuff going on in this one. Now, you might think I'd put this one higher in the top 10 because it is really a very beautiful model. However, the thing that really lets it down for me, and I own this model, is that it's quite fiddly and hard to put together. And as a result of being resin as well, it means that it's also not very strong. It's quite brittle, and it does, unfortunately, break a little bit if you're not careful. So you do have to be very careful with this one. One of the standout details I really like on this one as well is that the las pistol is actually being loaded by the servo skull there, if you can notice really closely there. Pretty cool. But there you go. Lady Credo in at number 10 for me, absolutely. So moving on now. The next one I'm going to say is, we'll go with Gore Halfhorn actually at number 9. Now this guy is kind of a reiteration of an original old school Rogue Trader 40k Imperial Beastman, which is a lovely, lovely model who has also, I think, a plasma pistol and a chainsaw as well. Same loadout, minus the cigar. This guy, again, I own this guy. He's a lovely, lovely sculpt. Really enjoyed painting him. I wouldn't mind actually having another crack at it at some point, knowing that I can paint better nowadays already. The chainsaw is lovely. This model's much more bulky. It's much easier to put together. He's got all sorts of little pouches and weapons and whatnot on him as well. Particularly like the bionic eye and of course the cigar in his mouth there too, and of course the sort of token broken horn there as well. The thing that I find lets this guy down just slightly is the design of the plasma pistol. It does just look very, very basic when you look at it up close in the flesh. So I actually didn't use mine. I switched the arm out for something else. But it's a really, really lovely model, I think you'll agree. Beastmen in 40k have always been pretty cool, especially Imperial Beastmen as well. So, but if you can find the original metal version of this guy, he might have a different name, but he's stunning, actually stunning model. I actually prefer the original, to be honest. I think it must have been a Jess Goodwin one. Correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who are into Old Hammer out there. It feels like a Jess Goodwin one. It is the same artist that did all the Chaos Beastmen for you know, Realm of Chaos. Well, one of the artists that did them for that as well. So really, really lovely model, and that is in at number 9 there. Now moving on to number 8 in the charts of Forge World here, we have, of course, Yar Umbra. Now this is a lovely, lovely model looking at it. I've always really loved Yar Umbra. He's arguably one of the most powerful and best dramatis personae in the game. He is a sniper. He's excellent. It comes with Overwatch, loads of extra lovely rules, and a long las. Just a really sexy, cool guy. He's got a bit of a sort of interesting bit of fluff around him as well. We kind of don't really know whether he's an alien or not. Certainly the shape of his head underneath that sack looks like it could be some sort of Xenos type of guy. I painted mine with a red sack, so he looks a bit like Red Skull. It's kind of cool though. I actually don't think the Forge World paint scheme, although it is a nice paint scheme, I don't think it does the model any justice. It's far nicer in the flesh. And yeah, just a really, really lovely pose. And yeah, who doesn't like snipers, basically? So yeah, Umbra there, just a really cool guy. I love the amount of fabrics on him as well, and leathers and stuff like that. He's got loads and loads of detail. And the backpack, I haven't actually got the back version of him in this picture here, but the backpack's really nice as well. Nice bit of detailing on that too, once you see it. So yeah, moving on to number 7 now, and that of course is the Rogue Doc. Now she's one of the more recent ones. Really, really lovely miniature. She's quite small. And she looks, you know, different to the normal sort of Escher miniatures that you get. I guess she's not an Escher really, she's just a Rogue Doc, but I like the fact that she's slightly more representative of your average female form really, and that might be you know, a bold statement there, but you know, I'm not really a fan of just straight up and down skinny athletic model representations for everything. I don't think that's quite right. It's nicer to have someone who looks a bit more realistic in terms of her overall body and stuff, you know, and it's not overly sexualized either, which is also really cool. You see so many big boobed and tiny waisted female models, and I'm just not really into that myself. It seems a bit childish, and you can tell it was designed by sort of nerdy men. But this one is a real departure from that. It's really nice. It's kind of cute in a way, I think. I really like the sort of rubber hazmat suit that she's wearing as well. She was really enjoyable to paint actually as well. Quite an easy one to paint too. But yeah, really nice one. I particularly like the bionic arm and the little bun she's got up there as well. But her backpack's got a las pistol on it and a few other nice little details. The zip's really cool too. So there you go, that's the Rogue Doc. I really like that one, I must say. Moving on now to number 6. This one you might not agree with at first, but again, like I said, I've got these models and I do find that in the flesh they are far nicer generally. This one is the the guild, the Slavers Guild, basically. But instead of going with all of them, I'm actually just going to focus on the Chain Lord there at the front, who's the leader. The fat guy with the axe is such a lovely model in the person, and just the epitome of grimdark for me. That pose, everything about him just screams Blanchitsu to me. It's just fantastic. He looks just like he's straight out of a John Blanche painting, and that's what I love so much about that one. Sure, some of it doesn't work, but the overall vibe of it, the fact that he's got this bionic arm that isn't even joined, it's just joined by a little piston at the top there. There's a gap in the middle. He's got a shock whip that comes out of the bottom of the arm, which is kind of awkward, but still kind of cool. A bionic leg as well, and just this massive chain axe, which is really cool too. Lovely little bit of detailing on that, but again, I don't think the paint job really does it justice here. I prefer, I'm not going to say I'm a better painter, because I'm not, but I do prefer my paint job of this. It's far more grimy and filthy looking, and far more like the John Blanche kind of paintings that you would expect it to look like. So again, if you don't like this one from the outset, you really do need to see it up close, because it is a beautiful miniature. In fact, all four of these guys are really beautiful, particularly the Shackle Man at the back there as well is also lovely, but very fiddly and hard to put together, that guy. Tiny pieces. So that was number 6. Moving into the top 5 now, and number 5 I'm actually going to say is Young Master Eros Slagmist. Now this guy is terrible in the game. He's a dramatis personae bounty hunter, or hired scum maybe. He's kind of like a sort of water vampire, so he steals water from people's bodies, which is really cool, but he's just not very good in the game. His rules are kind of terrible. I'm sure you'd agree if you know his stats and stuff, but he just looks fucking awesome. He's kind of got this samurai sort of Ronin vibe to him, but he's also got a slightly sort of Western vibe to him as well. It's hard to explain, but he's kind of got this hybrid cowboy slash samurai thing going on there. I love the fact that he's got these weathered robes on there as well. He's loading his las pistol. He's got this massive water tank on his back with some cylinders and shit, and he just oozes style, this guy. I particularly like the shoulder pads, actually, the rounded shoulder pads, which do make him look slightly more samurai vibe as well. Really lovely miniature. Again, I don't think the Forgeworld paint job does it justice. It is nicer in the flesh, and I might repaint mine because I don't think I did a particularly great job with it, but there you go. I do really like him as a miniature, and he's certainly nice to use as a sort of proxy for anything else, really. Maybe a someone other than Eros Slagmist in the terms of the rules. So there you go. Moving on now, we on the same sort of nautical theme, I would say that in at number 4 we've got the Subnautican, or the Nautican siphoning delegation here. So this is another delegation. These guys are from the Water Guild. We've got the chief dude down on the bottom right there, and then we've got the sort of champion equivalent with the staff, and they're very alien and weird looking and very cool, both of those guys. But I think it's pretty clear to see who stands out the most on this, and it is the giant orange fucking awesome Subnautican, which is what he's called. This guy is just class. I mean, I think everybody unanimously agrees that this guy is just an awesome miniature. Again, I've got this guy in person, and he's fantastic. Big chunky chap. He's basically an Ogren in a diving suit. I'd actually put a different head on him. You do get 2 head options in this. It's worth noting that. Mine is slightly flatter, bigger, wider head. But he's got this giant cylinder on his back, and I've heavily damaged mine and given him lots of texture paint as well. But you can see the green smashed bottles and stuff all over him, and it's just so cool. I love the fact that he's only got 3 fingers as well, and each of those fingers has almost like a sort of cephalopod sucker on it as well. So just an awesome miniature, as I think you'll agree. I haven't actually finished painting mine yet. I started with sort of metallic pink armor. I'm not really sure that's the one, but we'll see if I finish it and it looks any good. But it almost looks a bit sort of Emperor's Children at the moment. I need to dirty it up a little bit more. But there you go. Now into the top 3. Now this is where things get serious. Now again, these are just my own opinions, so you might fully disagree with me on this one, but Again, I have the miniatures for all of these, so this is probably why I'm gonna stick with the ones that I actually have physical copies of. And of course, this one is the Vansar Champions. Now, there is another champion who has a heavy weapon, but I don't like him as much as these guys. I think these two here equally are just fantastic miniatures. The one on the right, the female with the flak armor and the hotshot las pistol, is just oozes class. I love the pose of it. Again, there are things that I'm not a massive fan of. I don't like the really long head tail thing that they have. So I actually cut mine off entirely, and she looks quite a bit better with it, I believe. I've seen other people convert this one as well, and it's just a lovely miniature. In general, really lovely pose, particularly with a little bionic leg there as well. And a slightly different armor type for your typical Vansar as well. Yeah, and other than that, on the left you've got the old man with the hotshot las gun by the looks of it. Really lovely gun, really lovely las gun there with sort of extra pipes and sights and attachments on it, but he just oozes class. The fact that, I don't know, Vansar already look really cool. I know they're a cheesy gang, but they do look aesthetically incredibly pleasing. This guy takes it up a notch because not only has he got the typical sort of Vansar aesthetic that we love so much already, but he's also got a big cloak over the top of it, which just makes it look even cooler. If I could have all my Vansar looking like that guy, I'd be very happy indeed. And a couple of grenades under his arm there as well, which is really cool too. So that is number 3. Moving into the real serious stuff here at number 2, and this one is up for debate, of course, but we've got the headsman, the Cawdor headsman, of course. You know full well that Cawdor are my favourite house gang in the game, and this guy just oozes Cawdor. He is fantastic. Important to note that this model has actually gone through a couple of design changes, or at least one design change. When he came out originally, he did have a sort of pointed hat and did look incredibly KKK. I really liked it. Again, it's easy to separate real life from a science fiction fantasy, so it's okay to like that aesthetic if it's based outside of real life. However, I think it was just a bit too close for comfort for Games Workshop to release something that looked like a KKK Grand Dragon. They've still kept the noose around the neck though, which is probably my favourite thing about it. The axe, it looks fucking awesome. Everything about this miniature is just beautiful. I really love the candles over the shoulder there. In fact, everything about it is just perfect. I'm speechless when I look at this guy. To be honest, and it sounds crazy, this is actually the only one I don't own out of the bunch. And I'm not sure why I don't own it yet. I just think because I haven't had enough money to actually buy him, or actually find a use for him for anything, because a two-handed axe is generally not that great in the game. But, I mean, just look at him. He's just beautiful. I'd love to paint that. One day I hope I can paint that and do it justice, but yeah, fantastic sculpt. Hats off to whoever did that. I don't actually know the name of the sculptor for this, but I mean, you are an absolute hero for doing this one. So that's number 2. Moving on to my all-time number 1 Forgeworld Necromunda miniature here. Right, I need a drum roll for this one. Boom, here we go. Right. House Grime Military Attaché. I've painted these guys up recently. You are probably going to disagree with me heavily on this and say that's not fair, there's so many better options, but they are just beautiful. I don't know another model that I've painted and had so much fun painting. The Jägerkin, who is the female officer on the right, is just, I'm speechless, honestly. She's just incredible. I painted her as a redhead. My partner's a redhead, so I painted her as a redhead. I don't know why, but I saw this similarity between the two of them. And then I showed my partner, I was like, look, I made you in the 40k universe. And she was like, oh, okay, thanks. She didn't really get it, but yeah, maybe I see my partner as a Jägerkin, I'm not really sure. The mother of my child, but I mean, look at her. She's just such a fucking warrior, awesome veteran. She's got scars down the side of her face from some sort of Xenos threat. We've got a lovely looking, expensive looking bionic arm there as well. The spats on the legs are just awesome. The combat shotgun is the icing on the cake, and then we've got beautiful carapace armor as well with the Necromunda the spider on the shoulder. I mean, the helmet is unique. It doesn't look like anything else. It's she is a Necromundan spider in total, and just the little sash on the waist. Everything about it is just perfect for me. Moving on though to the Kriegmeister, or Kriegmeister as it's actually called. Again, almost as good. It's hard to separate these two. They're both excellent. I actually prefer the Jägerkin slightly, but the Kriegmeister was a joy to paint, an absolute joy to paint. Same thing, he's got the awesome carapace armor here. The cane with the ball on it, his bionic leg is a panther's foot. I mean, how fucking cool is that? We've got a sort of saber strapped across the back, which goes under his cloak there as well, and just these beautiful sort of sash that's threaded through his belt there. I mean, it's just perfect. The monocle is the icing on the cake for me as well, and I mean, just the pose, he's just an absolute badass. These two, I wanted to build a gang around these two, an outcast gang around these two, and they're just not very good in the game. The Jägerkin's pretty good, but he's just terrible as a leader. Just doesn't give you as much as you want for a leader, but I could use them as proxy miniatures for something else. Maybe Venators would be quite a good one to do. But House Grime have some pretty cool fluff as well. These guys are the military guys who are strong allegiances to House Goliath, actually. A strong alliance to House Goliath. They supply all the weapons and shit. But I mean, yeah, that there is my top 10 of the Forgeworld miniatures. I'm actually just going to do an extra little special here and give you my 5 least favourite, or the 5 worst, arguably, of the Forgeworld Necromunda range. Starting with number 5, of course, we've got the Sump Croc. Now, this guy was released quite a long time ago. The Sump Croc, to me, again, I've seen it in the flesh, and it does look marginally better in the flesh, but it's just quite an ugly model. I suppose it's supposed to be ugly because it's a giant mutated crocodile, but to me it just looks confused. The proportions are all wrong. The legs are tiny, the head is massive. Like, the head is far too big for what it should be. It's too wide, and it's just not a very nice sculpt, if I'm honest. No disrespect to the sculptor there. I'm sure you're a better sculptor than I am, but it's just not a strong miniature there at all. However, it's not the worst. It gets worse from here. This one is the Arachne rig. This is the Van Saar Brute. Now, it's a real shame because the Van Saar miniatures, in my opinion, are some of the best full stop that I've ever seen Games Workshop produce in any range. But this guy really, really lets them down, I think. It's just a mess of detail, too much clutter. I'm just not a fan of it. Again, I haven't got it in person, so I haven't seen it. It might actually be quite a bit nicer, but when I thought of the Arachne rig, I thought of something kind of like the spider tank out of Ghost in the Shell. Perhaps that would have looked really, really cool. This thing just doesn't look cool. It looks whack to me. Don't like it at all, which is a shame as well because it's awesome in the game, and the Arachne rig is arguably the best brute in the game, actually. So if you take brutes, this one's definitely one worth taking. However, I much prefer the lads from Sump City Radio, who've done much better conversions with this, using the 40k parts. You know what they're called, the robots, the killer robots in 40k, the Terminator dudes. Anyway, Necrons. That's what I meant to say. So that was number 4 in my worst list. Number 3 now, it's getting progressively worse here. This one it still makes me laugh. I just find it terrible. And this is the Chimerix, the Escher Chimerix. This guy is also a brute. Now, again, it's just a jumble of detail and stuff, and I get that because it's supposed to be, because it's a chimera. So again, it's quite good in game, but the model is hideous. It's ugly as fuck, and it's just not nice in any way. I've had a look at the model all around. I've seen one in flesh, and it's no better, actually. Paint job doesn't do any justice, of course, but the thing that insults me the most about this one is that fucking bow on the right wrist there, which is just trying to make something cute, which is just, it's just horrendous. I can't stand this miniature. So apologies to the guy who or girl who sculpted this one, but it's just ugly as fuck, and I hate it. Sorry about that. Okay, so nearly at the end now. We're just looking at the second from worst, which is the I don't even know what this guy's name is. I can't even remember what this guy's name is, but he is just a floating blob of fatness. He's a psyker. He is, yeah, the floating blob, we're going to call him. It's undeniably a terrible miniature. It's undeniably a terrible sculpt. The fact that it's on a flying base makes it even worse, because flying bases are the bane of existence. But this guy, I mean, look at it. I mean, what is it? It's just such a mess. There's actually something I like about it. I think I like it because it's so terrible. And it is very Blanchitsu, I suppose. So you could paint it in a better way and it could look even more weird and stuff. It's definitely got some endearing qualities, but I think it's still a very lazy and very sort of messy looking sculpt in general. And I don't think there are many people out there that like this one. Maybe I'm being too kind, not putting it in first place as worst, but here is the worst. And I honestly think this, as most people will agree, is just a fucking terrible miniature, and that is the Goliath Zerka. So here's your brute for House Goliath, and I mean, look at it. Do I need to even say anything? Look at it, look at his face. Yeah, the tiny arm, the big shoulder, like just the proportions are, I guess they're supposed to be out, but it just looks absolutely terrible. It's really, I'm really not a fan of this one. I can't stand it, in fact. If someone tried to play this against me on the table, I probably would just voluntarily bottle out due to the ugliness of the miniature. So there you go. That's how strongly I feel about it. So there you go. This was an unusual video. I just thought I'd give you my favorites and not so favorites in the Forge World